Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of the Last Night's Game podcast. I'm your host, Amy Butchon-Siegfried. And today, my co-host and I, Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me on today.
We are going to talk a little bit about athletes who own sports teams. Now, it's just not enough to be an athlete and maybe own a nice car and a nice house. They also own sports teams. And this, to me, is one of those great conversation starters because it kind of fits into any conversation you're having. Talking about interest rates, we can discuss this. Are you talking about buying a new home? We can discuss this. Are you talking about how much you love Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool? We can talk about this. There are so many lead ins, even though he's not technically an athlete, I suppose. But, anyways, there's so many lead ins into this conversation, and you'll find that this is a really good one to bookmark and is a great conversation starter in so many facets because it also covers so many sports because athletes cross over on the sports teams they own. They typically don't own a team in their lane. So I want to start off with a guy who's like in every single lane. He's obviously, some call him the GOAT when it comes to being a quarterback. He is now in the broadcast booth where he's making more money than he was when he was a player. Tom Brady owns all the sports teams, it seems, at least all the ones in Vegas.
He's becoming the GOAT in buying sports teams, into sports teams at this juncture in his life. And he's, for some particular reason, dialed in on Las Vegas, which, I guess there's a good reason for that.
It's also a lot of new stuff, right? Like it's
a lot
new
of new stuff,
happening.
New options. Yeah, so he bought into the Raiders with his dear friend Mark Davis. As we know, both have great hair. So they have a lot to talk about there. And it's a conflict of interest,
Yes.
I was going to say conflict of interest as a broadcaster, which buying into Raiders means that teams don't let him go to practices before games. He can't talk to coaches, go over like game notes with anyone. So that was a weird one to do, knowing that you're going to make $300 million as a broadcaster.
Right. And it was Fox on board with that happening. Yes. I want to go back to, you mentioned like he and Mark Davis both have great hair. Give a 3-second explanation of Mark Davis, who is the owner of the Raiders, as well as of the Las Vegas Aces. He is an interesting man, as most owners tend to be, right? They probably tend to be a little quirky because they made a lot of money.
Yeah.
But he has a bowl cut, hence the hair joke.
I was going to say just Dumb and Dumber like that haircut, but blonde. So there's my explanation there, and a lot of white suit coats and jeans.
Yes, he definitely has a vibe, and so now that you know that he's kind of redheaded, red strawberry blondish, and has a bowl cut, you'll now recognize who this person is when you see him on TV.
On the sidelines, yes, and like you said, he's with the Aces and Tom. He also bought into the Aces as well with Mark, so they've got a good working relationship.
So the Aces are Vegas's WNBA team. He also has a electric boat racing team called Team Brady.
Does he race?
Do you think that hair races? Are you kidding me? The insurance policy on that man?
No,
There's no chance he races. Not a chance. So Tom Brady also owns a major league pickleball club, the Las Vegas Night Owls. I bet you didn't know that one.
I did not know about the Night Owls, but that's a perfect mascot for Las Vegas, the Night Owls.
Yeah.
So I can get on board with that.
I mean, hey, speaking of mascots, I want to understand, you went and saw the pandas at the San Diego Zoo recently. What do I need to know? Like, where I'm taking the Munchkin. What do I need to know about the pandas? We're going to go off topic for just a minute, everybody.
It's worth going off topic. And before I start, I don't know why more teams don't have pandas as their mascots.
Because they're not vicious.
As ferocious as they are to the bamboo. Like, the bamboo has no chance against the pandas.
Well, if there were more bamboo mascots, maybe there'd be more panda
mascots. That's true. The fighting bamboos.
Yeah. Tom Brady, tune in now.
Tom, here's your panda talk that I know you've been wanting to know about. Yeah, they got pandas back from China recently. That they've had pandas for it's like 1990s, and they've had leases back and forth with China, and they lost them for a few years, but they got them back. It's actually the great grandson of the first panda that was ever there. So they are back in San Diego Zoo, and you can buy early access at 8:30, 30 minutes before the park opens. And I think they strategically feed the pandas at that time to make sure that you go get to see them. And they're just as like hilarious as you see in the video, just like waddling around, like just eating bamboo on their backs,
living
looking.
their best lives.
It looks fake. Like it looks like it's a person in a panda suit, just like being a panda.
Well, there are places in China that they've been
Yes,
caught for doing that.
yes. It didn't. I don't think it was a person, but just the characteristics that they're just silly creatures, and it's fun to see.
That's
And they
awesome.
eat like fun panda fact 20 to 80 pounds of bamboo a day.
That's insane. And bamboo's hard. Imagine
Not
what
to
that does to your
them,
digestive system.
ferocious pandas. That's not hard to them.
That is so interesting. Okay, so thanks for letting us take a side conversation about pandas.
Fighting pandas.
Tom Brady makes us think of pandas. I mean, it's
Yes.
basically where we're at.
Yes.
So that's kind of where we're at. But he also owns Birmingham FC. Now, everybody and their mother we'll talk about owns a soccer team, it seems these
Mhm.
days. But he owns Birmingham FC, which is a English football club.
And a lot of these people we'll talk about have had a lot of success buying into these teams. Not necessarily Tom, since he bought in. They were relegated for the first time since 1995. And we don't have a relegation system in America, unfortunately, but in European soccer they do, where I think the bottom one or two teams get dropped to the next level below.
So it's like Premier League is at the top one, right?
That's the
Premier
very, very
League's like
top, yes.
we will call that like the big leagues, right?
Yes.
Premier League. And then they have what, like 4 or 5 tiers underneath, maybe 6?
Maybe 7. There's a lot.
Yeah, and so, like, you ever hear about Wrexham FC,
Mhm.
which is the team that, Ron McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds own? They
Yes.
have been promoted.
Yes. Since
So they're
5
not
or
in the
6.
Premier League yet, but I think they're the one
Not
below the
yet.
Premier League, maybe?
Almost, I think they're getting very close.
So they've been promoted for the past 2 years,
Yes.
where Tom's team is going downhill.
Going downhill, and it's devastating financially for these teams to get dropped,
I'm
but it's also
sure.
incredible financially for them to go up. Yes.
Well, if you changed your mascot to Panda,
Yeah, fighting pandas.
Birmingham FC could be a game changer.
It could, and that's what made like the Ryan Reynolds and Rob's Wrexham FC show so intriguing, that they were so far down levels. Like the soccer, everything was run down. They had no money, and they've invested a ton of money into that team, bought players they probably couldn't have before to get back up to where they are now.
Yeah, it's really cool to see that how they've turned that around.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, looking at these names that own soccer teams, there's been some huge investments into NWSL teams.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, which is National Women's Soccer League, I would say no, the biggest one that really started this trend of big names investing in NWSL teams is Angel City FC. I mean, they had Natalie Portman, who was, I think, a key piece of bringing a team to LA.
Yes.
Jessica Chastain, Eva Longoria, Gabrielle Union, Jennifer Gardner, tennis legend Billie Jean King, Serena Williams. Her daughter is an owner, I believe, Olympia.
Yes.
And so it's neat to see that these women really champion and bought into, like, they called Jennifer Garner was like the team mom for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I think they brought oranges out for halftime one time. And so it's fun to see that they've really embraced this team.
Yeah, women investing in women is the way the women are going to help women, right?
That's right.
So if they don't believe in it, then no one will. Having these women invest and bring eyes to it, if anything, they bring enough eyes to the games, that's all that really matters.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you have those ladies who invested in Angel City FC.
Mm-hmm.
We have Washington Spirit, which is the soccer team in Washington. We have Alex Ovechkin, who is hockey player.
Scored the most goals in NHL history.
Perfect,
Yeah.
right? That was what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Naomi Osaka, who was the highest paid female athlete ever at one point, may still be, is the owner of the North Carolina Courage. So there's a lot. I think Peyton Manning just bought into there's going to be a new Denver team. Peyton Manning just bought into that.
Peyton Manning's in that as well. The big names are getting behind the soccer, which is great to see. Keep the league growing, getting bigger, and getting more popularity as they continue to add more teams.
Right. And you see there's quite a few athletes who are bought into European teams again.
Mm-hmm.
JJ Watt and Burnley FC, he and his wife she played soccer
In the NWSL.
Yep.
In Houston. That's how they met.
Makes sense. Kevin Durant, basketball player, has a minority stake in French soccer club. Yeah, that too. Paris Saint-Germain. Like there's definitely the price point in soccer obviously must be a little different, but American soccer for sure, right? Remember David Beckham came over, and I have no doubt he had a deal with MLS when he came over to play for the Galaxy to get a team. So he's the owner of Inter Miami, which has Messi.
And they just set records for the club World Cup. They were the first team from the MLS to ever advance to the knockout round, which is stunning. Yeah, so David's doing very well to get
Yeah.
Messi over here.
I mean, it's a
Soccer
big deal.
legend.
That was a big commitment. But I mean, once again, it goes back to some of these things, which I'm sure all of these teams are, you look at Wrexham and some of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
David Beckham had the partnerships. He maybe didn't have the money, but he had the partnerships with Adidas. He has the other partnerships to piece this together. I'm sure he got MLS on board to do something similar for Messi, like they did for him. And so, from a Messi perspective, like I'm not going to judge his finances, but he probably doesn't need to make much more money. It's the other things to set him up for success in the future. So, it's really smart on how they've navigated that. Now, let's see. I want to make sure we're mindful of time. Basketball. We actually have more people than I thought that bought into NBA teams. When I started going through this list, we have quite the group. I mean, the obvious one, I think Justin Timberlake, is he still an owner of the Memphis Grizzlies? I
As far as we know, yes.
think
Up
possibly.
until this date, yes.
Up until, yes, I think so. But we have quite the names that have bought into NBA teams. Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith. We have Usher, who bought into
Cleveland Cavaliers, yeah.
Cleveland Cavaliers. Larry Fitzgerald, who played for the NFL. Aaron Rodgers, Shaq, Dwayne Wade. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and who've bought into NBA teams.
And which is impressive because we just saw the Celtics sell for what, like $6 billion, and then the Lakers went and sold for $10 billion. So obviously they're not buying the full team; they're just buying a percentage. But that's a great thing to do for them with these valuations going just absolutely crazy.
It's
with these numbers.
I mean, if you can afford to invest in it, I think like the Usher scenario, I think he bought in shortly after they drafted LeBron. So this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
That he bought in. And so it's pretty impressive to see how some of these have come full circle. And then we have teams like the Toronto Tempo, which is a new WNBA team coming soon that Serena Williams bought into. Once again, she's in everything too. But because the stakes in those teams have gone up incredibly high too.
Yeah, and the get-in price is a little bit lower than an NBA team just because of, obviously,
they're newer.
NBA's been around a lot longer.
Right.
So
They're still growing.
Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity. And if you can sell for $10 billion, why not?
I mean,
get in there.
Once again, right? I'm going to save esports for the end, but I do want to talk a tiny bit about NASCAR. There was a trend for a while where people were diving into NASCAR. And the original guy to do that was David Letterman, not an athlete, I understand. But he sort of was the guy who jumped in there first. And then we saw Michael Jordan come in, and then we saw Pitbull come in.
Almost, his shows are very athletic, so I will put Pitbull in the athlete category.
That's true.
There's a lot of dancing and sweating going on, so Pitbull will put him as an athlete.
That's true.
But he did invest. He was with it for quite a few years, and then he just recently announced that he's no longer a partner with NASCAR, with the team anymore.
And there's been some weird, I feel like there's been some weird NASCAR stuff. Like, did Michael Jordan get in trouble? But he's partnered with Denny Hamlin, who's still a driver.
Yes, 23X. And they're suing NASCAR. NASCAR's suing, so they're involved in a lot of things going on there in NASCAR. So
that sounds messy.
Their team's suing NASCAR.
So there's that.
Yeah, there's just so much money that it takes to, as you know, produce a car and keep it running and get sponsorships, and you have to have some very deep pockets to sustain that kind of levels.
Right. It's pretty intense, and the sponsorships are, but it's such a loyal fan base. There's all these studies that talk about the loyalty of fan bases and how NASCAR has one of the most loyal fan bases, that if their driver is the Tide driver, they're buying Tide, and or whatever else is on their car, they're buying it and they're supporting those companies. And so I think that's really cool from a marketing standpoint, that is such an opportunity. But speaking of marketing and really the sport has grown so quickly. And someone actually asked me this the other day, is esports dead? And I'm like, absolutely not. Esports is growing astronomically. I mean, you're looking at it for a quarter in 2024, Twitch users, which is the own 60% of the market share. Twitch users watched over 3.3 billion hours of general gaming content, with an additional 250 million of those hours dedicated to new game releases. So we're talking about the amount of eyeballs on esports teams and esports and gaming is just mind-blowing.
And this is kind of both outside our like comfort zone of knowing about, like, we're not like big gamers, but these numbers are pretty mind blowing, right? Like, that's not going anywhere. People are going to watch people play video games just like we watch our favorite athletes play games, and apparently it's not slowing down at
But
all.
it's so interesting, right? You watch the rollout of the Mario Brothers movie. We watched the Minecraft movie recently, and how they're engaging these gamers in those movies. I'm also seeing, and I've read an article recently about, they're saying people aren't going out to bars as much as they used to. And one of those facets is gaming, is esports, because they are at home playing games and not going out, which is just such a, like, when you think of that, if that can shift a market
Mm-hmm.
and shift, like, it's just incredible to me. Obviously, people who were smarter than us and saw this coming were people like David Beckham, who launched Guild Esports in 2020. I mean, there are so many athletes invested into esports teams. I mean, we're obviously seeing cities put up esports dedicated arenas, but I
Yes.
mean, we're looking at Steph Curry and Michael Jordan and Shaq, who's invested in everything. Mike Tyson.
Michael Strahan, like the list goes on and on and on. It's tough for me to fathom, but I mean, if you're going to stay home and play video games, they've figured out how to monetize something people have been doing forever.
I mean, it's incredible.
And
I
they're
mean, it's
considered athletes.
right, because if you've watched these, you weren't with us, but one night we were watching, we were hanging out with, just we had a bunch of people and there were no sports on, and so we were
Mm-hmm.
watching the Tetris World Championships on ESPN.
Is that the Ocho?
It was after Slippery Stairs, so yeah,
Okay.
basically. First of all, they don't even hold the controller like you and I would. They hold it the other direction. Didn't know that was a thing. But also, like, it's absolutely mind-blowing to me that this is such a huge market, and but to me, it's so amazing that it gives somebody something else to do that's not your standard operating basketball,
Yeah.
golf, and gives an opportunity for making money, putting teams together, giving people something to do that keeps them out of trouble, in
Yeah. You
theory.
don't have to be 6'10", 400 pounds and elite athlete
Right, and you
physically. Yes.
right, and you can do it from all over the world. It's just one of those things, and from, you don't have to have access to trainers, and, you're shipping your kid off to, maybe you are, but shipping your kid off to, gymnastics, Simone Biles, where you just go be homeschooled for your entire life so you can be an Olympic gymnast.
Send them to, I mean, it's kind of a dream come true for a lot of people. Just send them to like video game school.
I mean, my child would be there in a heartbeat if he was allowed to be at this
Most
point.
children would be,
Yeah,
for sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just really thought this was such an interesting podcast, and it's, like I said, it's such a great nugget to share some of this information. I mean, this, like I said, those esports numbers have come in
Mhm.
handy for me, and that knowledge of the esports market has come in handy for me so many times in different conversations, because it's growing so much and people don't know that much about it. So it's such a great conversation starter and a great way to dive into that. So as you have more questions, let us know. But hopefully you enjoyed this week's podcast and you learned something new and you'll share it with someone else you know. And of course, if you love this podcast, share it itself with other people. So thanks for joining us, Scott.
Thank you. I'm gonna go play some video games.
Damn right.